and
Brian.
a voice of this generation.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 60 of the Ron and Brian podcast. I am Ron, as always, joined by the man who was the 21st ranked Democratic presidential candidate, just missing out on this week's debates, Brian. Brian, I'm glad we have you here. You know, you didn't make the debates, but otherwise we might not have been able to record this week.
Mi abuela está en la cocina con mi padre.
Very nice. It is muy importante that we talk about the debate. Necesito, if you will. But we will get to that in a little bit.
I think that it is important that we discuss Hugo Chavez. We also discuss some of the other participants like Elian Gonzalez and I don't know. I can't come up with
And already, I don't know if you read today, Bill de Blasio in trouble because he shared some of the words of Che Guevara. So he had to apologize. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's get rolling here. Obviously, what do we always start off with? That's right.
Drink of the week.
Na zdrowie!
Salud.
Drink of the week.
Sláinte!
Drink of the week. Drink of the week.
Much like Representative Tim Ryan, we didn't have any good ideas this past week for our drink of the week, so we're kind of drinking our own thing. Brian, what do you have over on your end there?
I've got iced tea.
Iced tea going non-alcoholic this week.
Yeah, well, I think if for those loyal listeners, the people that have that were here last week in episode 59, we were drinking bootleg Dominican Republic alcohol. One of the things that's had done to me, it has left me almost blind in my right eye. So I am on some heavy antibiotics, which my doctor has said to me, do not drink alcohol with for at least a week. So I'm on day 3, getting a little fidgety, breaking out into the sweats.
Right.
But I've got this. I control the alcohol. The alcohol does not control me. But what's more important is that I'm drinking this very tasty lemonade.
All right. I thought it was iced tea. Or did you do a little Arnold Palmer, a little half and half?
Nah, it's iced
All
tea.
right. Well, I'm trying a new beer, which you might be interested in because I know how you like your wheat beers.
Love the wheat.
So this is a seasonal from Southern Tier Brewing. This is a citrus punch. It's an imperial wheat ale brewed with grapefruit peels, tangerine peels, blood orange juice, and natural grapefruit extract. So a lot of citrus in there. So let me hold on a second here.
Take a deep pull. Let the flavor just exist in your mouth. Swirl it around. Let it hit all your different taste bud zones.
Let me get it on the nose too.
The man just literally sniffed his beer. Now, that's how you know the man takes his shit seriously.
I mean, I'm gonna give it a thumbs up. It's I would like a little bit more citrus, but it's got a nice crisp taste to it. I think it'll be a good summer beer.
More citrus?
More citrus, always more citrus.
Really? All right.
All right, well, again, as we always encourage you to do, if you have any ideas for Drink of the Week or themes for Drink of the Week, hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or head on over to our webpage, ronandbrianpodcast.com. Head to the Contact Us page. And while you're at it, go to Apple Podcasts maybe. Subscribe, rate, review, share us with your friends. Do all the good stuff that we like you to do.
Go to YouTube, like, subscribe, share.
Go to Stitcher. I don't know, I'm running out of other places that we're playing. But any place a fine podcast is found, you can find us.
Yeah, we're all over the place. All over the
board. All right, let's keep this train moving.
This
week.
in
Racism.
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 All right, we had another heavy vote coming in with Days in Dave took an early lead. Michael Means came up a bit short. It looked like he might come up with a tie towards the end, but fell short 63% to 37%. That means Days in Dave gets win number 4. He is retired. He gets our third number 1 seed. So congratulations to Days in Dave. We sat him on the bench. We brought him back. He proved his worth.
I think I think this is an opportunity here, Ron, for you to, I think, relinquish a little bit of the power, of the control. Let the committee, follow the rules that the committee has put out there. If there's a candidate you don't like and the people keep voting for him, I think you've got to take a step back from your control issues and let the people's voices be heard.
Not only do I get drunk on beer, I get drunk on power, and I think that may have been what happened a few weeks back. Days in Dave, much like if I were an African American person, put me in my place.
There you go.
But what we did not have this past week is we really didn't have any stories of racism, other than our president and various members of government. But we try to stick away from those in This Week in Racism. So none of our no barbecue Beckys, no permit Patties, no crosswalk Kathys, really nothing this past week. So we're going to put This Week in Racism voting on hiatus for a week as we search for 2 new candidates for you guys to choose from.
I'm really, I feel like once again we have solved racism.
I would like to think that, but yet with July 4th right around the corner, I feel there are a lot of public racist stories just waiting to come out of the woodwork. A lot of public gatherings, a lot of people trying to barbecue and picnic and go to the beach and just mind their own business. And I'm sure there are a bunch of drunk, stupid white people out there ready to prevent that. So,
and I'm looking at you, West Virginia. I'm looking at you, Kentucky, Georgia. Don't let me down. Texas, very strong state, has put out a lot of candidates for us. Missouri, often overlooked,
very much so,
in terms of their racism, but they put up quite a few honorable mentions. Do not let me down.
You know where we don't see a lot of racism from? The Dakotas. And they strike me as very racist states, and I don't know why. Maybe I'm missing out on something here.
I think in the Dakotas they are more obsessed with just trying to survive the winters than and maybe just not looking for some mountains, some hills, valleys. It's a pretty flat land over there.
I guess once you've driven an hour and a half to get to a convenience store, you really don't have the strength left in you to be all that racist. You're going to shop with whoever's there.
Can I get a pack of smokes?
So, again, and we always encourage you, if you see any acts of racism out there that you'd like to share with the show, hit us up. Again, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. In the meantime, let's see what's bothering us this week.
Ron and Brian's Beef of the Week.
You know what's bothering me this week, Brian? It's Kickstarter.
Oh.
Are you a fan of Kickstarter? Or have you used the Kickstarter before?
Never, not once. No, I lump it in the same category as GoFundMe.
Really? Okay. But you actually get a product, God willing, at the end of the day with Kickstarter. Theoretically, which is kind of my beef this week. Now, I've used Kickstarter quite often, gotten some very cool things off of it. Granted, I have been screwed as well. I got one of those fancy the coolest cooler. Probably never going to see that in my lifetime. Got this coffee machine, which you would have loved, the Reese coffee machine, where it grinds your beans, it froths your milk, the whole thing. That was 4 years ago. Don't think I'm going to see that. And I've got a growler thing that holds like 3 growlers. It's supposed to dispense beer. That's, about a year behind or so. What drives me crazy is like I understand you're probably not going to get your product on time. Like, this isn't a store, and I think that's like the number one beef a lot of people have is, oh, well, I bought this thinking I'd have it for Christmas, and then I didn't have it. Like, I never go into it thinking that I'm going to get a product on time, but I assume I'm going to get a product at some time. And it feels like once Kickstarter has their money, they're like, well, fuck you guys. You know, we gave you the warnings and you still bought anyway. So the main item that's bothering me right at this exact moment in time is a couple of years ago, there was a product. It was a small air conditioning unit, perfect for the windows in the office that I record this very podcast in, because they don't open wide enough to put a regular air conditioner in. And I was supposed to have it, you know, a while back, and there was delays. They actually changed the name of the company once. I mean, they're Philly based, so I'm like, all right, Philly's not going to let me down. So here we are, almost July, and yet again, I still don't have my air conditioner in my office. And the air conditioner I did buy, the one that you put the little hose into the window and then the big-ass unit sits there, that, of course, broke after the 1-year warranty ran out. So I am just, my beer is sweating, my balls are sweating. It's very uncomfortable, so fuck you, Kickstarter.
All right. If we're talking Kickstarter, can you please walk me through what are the terms to it? Like the level that I have in terms of understanding is that like something with like a GoFundMe is the person sets what they want, like their target total donations to be, and if they don't hit it, then everybody gets their money back.
Right.
So I'm starting to get the idea that Kickstarter doesn't operate that way.
Well, the way it works is the creator does set like a monetary goal for their project to move forward, and you don't even get charged until the initial funding period's over. Like, it's usually like 30 some days. So if they hit their total, then you get charged, and then Kickstarter gives the company their money minus Kickstarter's cut, of course, and then it's reasonable. And then it's up to the creators to keep in contact with all of their donors, and then eventually deliver a product at the end of the day. What is supposed to happen is if they are not able to deliver a product, they are supposed to refund whatever remaining money they have left back to people. And that's the kicker, because 99% of the time, they've already blown through the money.
Whatever cash, yeah.
Now, the only thing I've ever seen where it's gotten to like a legal perspective is with this cooler we were supposed to get. Like, a bunch of people actually ended up forming like a class action suit and got the DOJ in Oregon involved. And so there was some sort of settlement there where, if we don't get our coolers in 2 years, like, the guy basically will be giving us like $20 back for a cooler that we spent like $300 on.
Oh, okay. Well, that's my next question is like, how much are you paying for these things?
I mean, it depends on the product. Like I bought one time I bought a bottle of barbecue sauce for like $15, and it ended up not coming. So it's like, all right, no big deal. But like the coffee machine was like $400. This beer machine's like $400. So I've easily got over $1,000 tied up in products that I have not received, but hopefully will receive. I have no hope in the cooler and the coffee machine, because they just don't even email their donors anymore. But at least like the growler people and the AC people are like still like, all right, this is where we're at. This is what's happening. We still think we can get you a product by like March of next year. Like, the air conditioning company's like, we're going to give you stock in the company to make up for it. Ooh. Which I'm like, oh, a company that has no sales and no product and no investors, really excited to get us some stock in that. But I've gotten some watches that I've enjoyed. I got my very first sous vide machine off of Kickstarter. I have been able to resell some of my Kickstarter items for a nice little profit, because for some reason, like especially the tech things, people want the Kickstarter edition. So it's not 100% horrible, but the AC thing, especially with it being like 90 degrees in this office right now, kind of stings a little bit.
Okay, I accept that.
So buyer beware, and even more so on Kickstarter. What's bothering you, my friend?
I would have to say something similar to something I've already addressed today. What's bothering me? Antibiotics.
And why is that? Because they really serve a good for people throughout the world.
Because right now, in this temperature, I should be drinking a gin and tonic.
It is perfect gin and tonic weather.
In fact, I'm going to call it right now. Drink of the week next week, gin and tonic.
Done and done.
I'm just calling it right now. Let's do gin and tonics, because right now I should have a sweaty glass, ice cubes clinking against each other, just like my sweaty balls are right now, and I should be enjoying that. And instead, because of my doctor, because of that bootleg Dominican whiskey last week, I am sipping on some already what is practically warm
iced tea.
Iced tea. Now here's my next question to you. Would you still? Were you not concerned about background noise of an air conditioner while you're recording the podcast?
Well, I would turn the air conditioner off during the podcast.
Got it.
Like I would get because the nice thing is, it's controlled by my smartphone, so I could be at work, on a day we're going to record the podcast
bougie.
And say,
You're so
all right,
bougie,
let me
Ron.
get the office down to like 68 degrees so I can turn it off and record for an hour, and it's still going to be cool.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did you just say that that this Kickstarter air conditioner was Wi-Fi controlled, that you would be able to turn it on remotely?
Yes, I did say that.
You're so bougie. I love it. I genuinely love it. Like, part of me wants to slap you with like a woman's glove, and the other part of me wants to just give you a hug.
I mean, I technically had that with the old air conditioner because I just put a smart plug in the wall, and if I need to turn it on, I could do that or set a timer. But now I got nothing. I got nothing but sweat.
What's a smart plug?
A smart plug is a Wi-Fi plug that you can plug your electronics into, and you can control it from your smartphone, turn it on and off. You can set a timer for it. A smart plug.
Really? Yeah. I've never heard of these things.
I got a ton of them here for Christmas time.
Wow.
We plug all the Christmas trees and lights and everything into the smart plugs, and then I can turn them on and off right from my phone.
What do they run you?
These ones were like, I got them on, they're like $10 or $11. I mean, you can get them as cheap as like $5 or $6. Yeah.
Get out of here.
Where the fuck have you been? I can control.
I've been on Kickstarter. I spend all my time on Kickstarter.
I can control these things with my Alexa. I can say, Alexa, turn on my Christmas lights, and it'll turn on all the Christmas light switches.
All right, let me ask you another question.
Please do.
I feel like I'm doing a lightning round. How come you picked Amazon Alexa over Google?
Well, I had the Google Home initially, and the strength of the Google Home, it was fantastic for asking it questions that required anything search enabled, but it did not at the time. It didn't really control anything else in the house. Like, it was so new, it wasn't compatible with anything. So it was really just like, I was like, well, I can just go to my computer and search for something rather than ask it.
Right.
So then we broke down, we got the Alexa, because the Alexa hooked into the lights, the alarm system, the sound system, the locks on the doors, all this other stuff. But Alexa kind of sucks from a search perspective. So I'm kind of like torn right now.
How does Alexa control the lights in your house?
Well, you have to enable what's called an Alexa skill. Basically, like if I have a light that's attached to one of these smart plugs, or if I have a smart bulb, it does it that way.
Got it. I think I'm living in the 1800s.
I feel like I'm speaking to my mother.
It's what's amazing, and this is where I'm fully embracing getting old, is that I've already starting to see signs of technology that I'm not capable of mastering, and I'm okay not being able to participate in it. Like, one of the things I've noticed and I've thought about it is social media, and a lot of people are making these videos and animated images where part of the image moves, like the background, and I look at it, I'm like, yeah, that's very cool. Maybe we should do that for. I don't really know. I'm not gonna learn. No, I don't think I think that's a skill I don't need to have.
I mean, we could actually make the podcast available on Alexa as well.
You just blew my mind. How does one do? What do you mean by make it available on Alexa?
You can create an Alexa skill for the podcast, which again, I'm not saying I know how to do that, but you can create it. And if one of our listeners was at home and they had an Alexa and they activated the Ron and Brian podcast skill on their Alexa, all they would need to do is say, Alexa, play Ron and Brian podcast. And it would literally play our latest podcast for them.
So Alexa skills is kind of like an app store.
Pretty much, yes.
I got to look into this. See, and I'll tell you why I've missed out on this whole thing was the fact that I'm paranoid of those things recording audio of me.
Oh yeah, no, we gave the Google Home to my in-laws, and my mother-in-law is very much like you with the conspiracy theories, and like she had it plugged in for a few days, and like she literally just she unplugged it. She like wrapped it in a towel, and then she put the towel inside of a bag and was like, I just don't want this thing in my house anymore.
Yeah, no, because there have been documented cases, of Amazon employees that are going through the servers and listening to people's conversations.
Well, if you're not doing anything illegal, Brian, I don't know why you'd be worried.
Oh, you did not just bait me like that. Yeah, you just baited me, and that's not fair. Right. Not fair at all.
I apologize.
Speaking of baiting, I'd like to remind everyone, July 20th, Saturday, 12:30 p.m., Philadelphia, Ron and Brian podcast live.
Tattooed Mom, 5th and South Street. Did you say 12:30 p.m.?
I did say 12:30 p.m. If you're in Philly or the Philly area, Saturday, July 20th, come on out. Check it out. Ron and I will be there. We are going to be recording a live podcast episode. It's going to be a doozy. We've got a lot of ideas that we've been bouncing forth. Guests, musical numbers, live. I will do a celebrity obituary slow jam. May have to kill someone. Because
how it goes sometimes.
To make sure that it's, hey, listen, if I do what I got to do, but we'll be live. So and we'd love to have some more listeners. Meet us in person.
I had a friend reach out to me this week. She said, "Hey, we're having a pig roast. Want everybody to come out, see the new house, have some pig." I'm like, "When is it?" She's like, "July 20th." I'm like, "Can't. We're part of the Philadelphia Podcast Festival." She was like, "Well, I think I just need to cancel the entire pig roast then. And everybody just needs to come to the Ron and Brian podcast live taping."
Why doesn't she bring the pig roast to Tattooed Moms?
Possibly. She lives out in York, PA, which, as we know, is really the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania.
Got it.
Only right. Toothless Hicks live out in York.
Well, then she could do the pig roast on Sunday the 21st, because is on God's day, when God's resting, you roast a pig.
Good plan. What happened this week, Brian? Was there anything in the news, anything important that went down this past week?
I went to my first Yankees Old Timers Game.
I was so jealous to see that you were there. Who was there? Throw out some of the names.
There were a lot of people from the '98 championship, but really, but they also had some people in the '70s. There were two things that really stood out for me. I mean, they threw out, Mickey Rivers was there, Bernie Williams was there.
I think I saw David Wells.
Of course, David Wells was there.
The same as he did when he was playing. But he looked 50 when he was playing.
David Cohn was there. There were two things that really stood out. One, Mariano Rivera. This was his first Old Timers Day.
Mo.
So, and obviously, they build up. They had some people that were not necessarily huge names. Homer Bush was there. Jason Grimsley was there.
Going deep with that one.
Oh, no. They went deep. Graham Lloyd was there. And these are some of the names they start off with as they're announcing players to come out onto the field. And you're like, okay, come on. You got to hit me with some.
Give us somebody we know. Come on.
Old Timers Day. So finally, they get to the end. There's one chair left, and you're like, okay, it's got to be. So they announce Mo. just the place just lights
Yeah.
up. I mean, this guy is just a living legend. The only player in baseball history to make it to the Hall of Fame unanimously on the first round, their first time going into the Hall. Not only that, but the first time he comes up to bat, he hits an inside the park home run.
Really?
He just slaps a ball in between the two outfielders, the center fielder and the right fielder. Ball just rolls right between them, goes all the way to the fence. One of the advantages of playing an old timers game is that your outfielders are not running at top speed. But what I will say is that the moment that just really hit home was they announced Don Larson, who is famous for throwing the only perfect game in World Series history. I believe he did that in 1954. Still alive. And so they wheel him out into a wheelchair. So out of the dugout, he comes out in a wheelchair. They wheel him just across the foul line, and then he stops. Somebody comes out with a walker, helps him stand up from the wheelchair, and that man, I think he's about 132,
Close.
dragged himself as shortly as possible, dragged himself to the seats in the center of the infield. The place, to me, what Mariano Rivera got in terms of an applause, Larson got that double.
Because he's not a pussy. He's going to take care of things himself.
He easily could have stayed in the wheelchair. Clearly, he's not walking very well, but he sat there and said, "Fuck it, this is Old Timers Day. I'm Don fucking Larson, and I'm walking. I am walking to go say hello to these Yankee greats." So it was nice because at one point they had Wells, Larson, and Cone were talking to each other, and all those guys have thrown some of the beauties that baseball is known for.
I believe they all
That's
three
what
have
I did.
perfect games, if I'm not mistaken.
That they do. And all at Yankee
That's
Stadium.
true. Very true. Rivera, I would have liked to see him, though. One of my favorite players to watch. And I'm not going to admit, I shed a tear his last game when Pettit and Jeter went to take him out of the game.
Mm-hmm. And he shed more than a
Got
tear.
you right here. Right here, got you.
I know. How was your week? What did you do?
I mean, I've just been working for the man, keeping it real. And of course, last night watched the first night of the Democratic debates. We're obviously recording this on Thursday night, so we're probably going to catch the tail end of tonight's debate. But last night, Brian, were you watching the debates?
Mi ojos está mal. Mi ojos no es bueno.
¿Dónde está
Mi ojos.
la biblioteca? Yeah, it was.
Mis padres. Oh, it was Democratic pandering at its worst.
I think, Beto definitely started it off, and he really hit he hit speaking Spanish. He mentioned some random individual that we are led to believe that he has met on the campaign trail.
I met a man, Juan Castillo.
I believe it's
Texas.
pronounced Juan Castillo.
Juan Castillo. And he said to me that all he really cared about was a better future for his children. And I said to him, Juan, if that is what you are fighting for, then let me fight for you.
Now, what freaked me out about Beto, and I don't know what the anatomical term is for that piece right below your nose where your lip meets, but
is that the septum?
It possibly could be. What do I know?
It could be.
But he has like a freaking canyon there right under his nose. Like if he wanted to help illegal immigrants, he could sneak a family of 4 in that divot he's got under there.
I was more concerned with the fact that it looked like he hadn't slept in a while.
I'm with you right there. Like he was kind of hunched over. His hair was a little disheveled. He had no energy whatsoever. From someone who normally is known for his energy, his speaking, his rah-rah attitude, just nothing. So,
well, something absolutely. I mean, the man had a lot of buzz. I would say maybe 4 or 5 months ago. A lot of buzz, enough that I got choked up by it. But the point being is just the fact that over the past month or so, when a lot of the candidates are starting to get traction, he really just disappeared. Like, there's got to be some reason for that.
I think, again, I think when you're going up against Ted Cruz like he was in the Texas Senate race, it's very easy to look great and energetic and better than the other guy. When you are in as wide of a field as is right now, I think it becomes that much more difficult. And he clearly was not prepared for a debate. He was over-prepared in some ways, where a lot of what he said and did seemed very contrived. But I think, I don't think he helped. I mean, I don't know if they necessarily hurt his standing, but I certainly don't think he helped himself out at all at any point during that debate.
Well, I think it reinforced his current standing of just no longer being considered a factor in this race. I mean, there's a couple questions that you follow this a lot closer than I do. And the first part is a question of, why are the Democrats holding a debate almost a year and a half before the actual election? This is ludicrous to me that they are already debating, and we are a full calendar year plus 5 months away from actually having election.
Well, what are we? We're less than a year away from the primaries. So the primaries will be what, April, May of next year, somewhere in that time frame.
Sounds about right. I thought March.
Could be.
No. It's earlier, isn't it? Don't they start in February?
It's very possible. I've done no research on that. I'm just,
because don't they have Fabulous Friday,
Super Tuesday,
Super Tuesday?
It's so,
and Mega March.
So regardless, we're probably, let's say we're 8 months away from primaries. So I think they kind of, with having 25 plus candidates floating around out there, I think they really wanted to get started early to try and start to narrow the field. And hopefully determine before we get too deep into the primary season who maybe the top 3 candidates are going to be.
Next question. How do they decide on 20 candidates to take part in this debate, and then turn around and say, no, we're going to limit it to 10 candidates, but we'll do 2 nights?
Well, from what I recall, it was always going to be a 2-night event with 20 people. And the way you got into that top 20 was you had to be polling 1% or better in 3 certain polls for a certain period of time, or you needed to cross a threshold of 65,000 individual donors, which I believe they eventually upped that number to 130,000, because that was how the woman who's in tonight, Williamson, she managed to get into the debate, not because she's polling over 1%, but because of the number of individual donors that she has. So they kind of they tightened that up, because I think they thought 65,000 was a big number. But I mean, you can have 65,000 people give $1, and you're at the number you needed to be at. So I think the hurdle to cross for the next debate or set of debates will be higher than this initial. But I mean, again, you still had a number of people that just made it in. De Blasio just made it in. Andrew Yang just made it in. So. And then you had a handful of people that Seth Moulton's one that just couldn't get the polling or the campaign donations to get himself in there.
Interesting, because I find it. I as somebody who feels that it is too early for debates, I found it confusing as to who the heck all these people were, and whether any of them actually stood a shot or not.
Well, I think if you look at last night, I mean, obviously out of the group that was there last night, Elizabeth Warren is the only one polling anywhere near the top. She's in the top 3 or 4 typically in a lot of the polls out there. She was the only person on stage last night that's pulled in double digits at any point. People obviously know Beto because, he had his Senate race. Cory Booker, I think everybody knows Cory because he's been very vocal after being mayor of Newark and then, making it in. And yes, his eyes were very disturbing.
They freaked me out last night. They literally looked like implants that somebody had put in there. And because I don't believe that, I believe he was the only person on the dais yesterday without eyebrows. So his alopecia was out of control. And he literally looked like he had a shocked look on his face at all moments, except when Beto O'Rourke decided to speak Spanish.
Oh, yeah, that threw everybody off right off the bat.
¿Dónde está mi pelo?
But, and I mean, eyebrows were kind of a thing. Amy Klobuchar, her eyebrows are just one's here, one's there. It was a little distracting the whole time. Obviously, the dominant person in the first hour of the debate was Elizabeth Warren. And it was interesting because they're like, we're going to give everybody a chance to speak. But then everything really seemed to go towards Elizabeth Warren in the beginning segment.
At one point, she had been asked 3 different questions before other people had been asked one.
Right, but I mean, to her credit, though, she crushed it. Like she clearly was the best prepared out of anybody on that stage. She knew how to get her message across and stick to message, and she was not afraid of her message. Like, there were times where, like, raise your hand if you're for Medicare for all, raise your hand if you're for this, and everybody else would be like, maybe, but she was just like, hey, you know what, fuck it. And then even when they were like, how are you going to handle Mitch McConnell, she was just like, bitch, I will handle Mitch McConnell. Don't you worry about that.
Right. What I like is the Republicans that are on Twitter today and in the talking heads who are sitting there saying that we can't afford Medicare for all. We can't afford to relieve college graduates of their student debt. But not one person is asking how we can afford a war with Iran.
Right. I mean,
no one's saying, like, how are we going to, we're still in Syria, we're still in Afghanistan, we're still in Iraq. Nobody's asking how we're paying for all those things. It's just automatic. Not only that, but we also gave corporations and the wealthy a tax cut. Nobody said, how are we paying for all this? If you ask that, you were anti-American. But somehow the idea of, well, what if we have the government pay for people's medical care? Oh, how can we afford that? I find it amazing.
We're sending money overseas. We're spending more money on defense than the next 12 countries combined. As you mentioned, we're giving tax breaks to every major corporation, every millionaire and billionaire in the country. Yeah, and no one asks how those things are going to be paid for. And at the end of the day, it has shown that Medicare for all will help the economy in general. Because if people aren't having to declare bankruptcy because they go into debt for medical issues, that's obviously good. They're not losing their homes. They're not losing their livelihoods. If they're not spending all their money on prescription drugs and treatments, they have that money to put into the economy. And it also frees up people to be able to move within the workforce as they see fit. How many people are stuck in jobs that they don't feel like they can leave because they don't have, they're worried about getting medical coverage at the next place that they go to?
Yep.
So that was a big thing. Who do you think?
All right, hold on a second. Hold on. I think you were just about to ask me a question, but I want to ask it to you, which is, I'm going to throw you some names of Democratic candidates, and I want you to tell me how you thought they did. Julian Castro.
I think he, out of anybody on that stage, raised his profile the most.
Now, he's the former mayor of San Antonio.
And I believe he was also a cabinet member. He was housing, I believe.
Quite possible.
I think he gave some very good answers to the questions. He obviously, to me, he came across as extremely sincere, talking about the two immigrants that were found dead the other day, the father and his daughter. Obviously struck a chord with him.
Yeah, see, I think I'm going to lose your vote on
Okay.
this one. I think that crossing that it's inherently a dangerous act to on foot travel from Honduras or Ecuador and try to sneak into America. I think people are going to die. People have died. People will die. It's going to take place all the time. The fact that suddenly we've got a photograph of a man and his daughter face down in the Rio Grande, I don't believe that should necessarily be a game changer in how we address immigration.
Maybe not a game changer, but
that's the way they were talking about it
but
yesterday.
don't you think something
everybody
like that
knows this guy's
is
name?
a potential
Everybody
result of how we're treating people that come to our borders now?
I think people died before the Trump administration crossing to the border.
Understood, but are we as severe as we
it's-
are now?
Hold on a second. You can make a different argument, which is that you don't agree with how we are treating immigration right now.
That's 100%
that
what I
I will
feel.
agree
Yes.
with. But what I'm saying is that this guy dying, and his daughter dying, as awful as it sounds, people are dying all the time. There are people that are dying of dehydration trying to walk through a desert right now, trying to get into this country. And just because nobody snaps their photo, their life doesn't matter. But somehow watching the news, I'm watching this kid's mother crying and playing with a doll, and I know this guy's name, and I don't want to sound callous or anything, but they were engaged in a dangerous act.
But the thing is that they were engaging in a dangerous act because where they were coming from was that much more dangerous to them. And
see, that's where I believe that we need to have a better asylum system, because
Agreed.
because we assume that where they're coming from is dangerous.
agreed. I'm not arguing that
We
point.
don't know that. We don't know anything about this man. We don't know anything about his daughter. But because they died in a river, now there's just this assumption of this, outpouring sense of loss that everybody is supposed to share, and it's no different. Maybe I'm more of a globalist, but you've got people that are escaping Africa, trying to sneak into Europe, that were showing up on the shores dead left and right last year. And they're probably still dying.
I think part of it is because there is no compassion on the right for this subject. The Democrats feel, especially a number of them feel, we need to try and compensate for what we are not doing as a country right now. And we need to bring these atrocities to light. People dying trying to cross our border, children being separated from their families, migrants being put, 2,500 of them, in a camp that's designed to hold 400. Children being put in cages made to sleep on concrete with aluminum foil blankets.
What was the story this week? And I saw a headline, and I saw that it seemed to have somewhat gotten resolved, but that a U.S. attorney was in a federal court defending the fact that children that are currently being detained by the Border Patrol should not be required to be provided with toothpaste and ability to shower. Like that, I think is just an all-time low for America. Right. And you know what we did concentration camps for the Japanese after Pearl Harbor. That was probably worse. But to sit there and as a government argue that even something as basic as a shower, that we should not be obligated to provide these people with showers. It's one thing to sit there and say we are overwhelmed, we don't have the infrastructure, and we are struggling, and we're trying to figure out a way. I can respect that. But to sit there and go to court and argue that we should not be required to provide showers to people that we are holding against their will, That to me was an all-time
Right, and
loss.
you're referring to Sarah Fabian, who had appeared before a panel of the Ninth Circuit Court this week, and it was really a case of that they were arguing over. There's obviously rules in place and laws in place for how we should be handling the immigrants and the migrant families and the children separated, and the words safe and sanitary are what was used in the legal rendering years ago. And so she was trying to argue that, they don't necessarily include soap or beds or a place to sleep. It's horrible that we would argue this. Even the judges were like, is this really the fight you want to pick? They're like, we understand that, you're not going to give them perfume soap and you're not going to give them, 800 thread count sheets, but to leave them in cold conditions when they complain that they're cold, turn it on the air conditioning. Making them sleep huddled together on concrete floors under, those aluminum foil blankets that are supposed to keep you warm. Not giving them proper medicine, not giving them treatment. This is why children are dying in the care of our government. And this woman was out there defending that. And you got some people are like, well, that's her job. Well, if that's your job, you may want to look into another job because that's a pretty shitty thing to have to do.
But I think it's part of the Republican strategy, which is to make the conditions so bad that the word gets out that people that potential immigrants sit there and say, we are going to stay where we're at, or we're going to go to Mexico and stay in Mexico. We're not going to go into America because the conditions are terrible, and we don't want to subject ourselves and our family to that. I think part of their agenda is to make sure that it gets out into the public how bad things are.
It's very disappointing to see, and that overall was as disappointing. And that was part of Julian Castro saying he wants to repeal that section. I think it was 1325, and that was the section that years ago was added in that changed crossing the border illegally from a civil matter to a criminal matter. And that's why we're having the issues that we have. Normally, if you come into this country before this was added in, it just went to civil trial. But now we're criminalizing it, so we're arresting people at extremely high rates, putting them in inhumane conditions, not affording them the right of due process in any timely fashion, and people are getting sick, and people are dying, and children are dying.
How did Cory Booker do yesterday?
I think he did well. Again, I think, if I were to pick a top three as far as performance, I'd rated it Elizabeth Warren, Castro, and Booker were the top three. I think Amy Klobuchar surprised me. I think she did well. I would put her a little notch below them.
I would fire her hairdresser. I'm sorry. Normally, and I know there's a sensitivity to talking about professional women and discussing their appearance, but it was a bizarre hairstyle. She had these streaks of gray.
You're thinking of Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Who, I mean, she was just very robotic in her delivery.
But that's because she is a product of the armed services.
Yeah, you don't have to wait too long for her to tell you that she's ex-military.
You wait to be spoken to, you speak your mind clearly, coherently, quickly, and you move on.
I thought it was funny, though, the only person she really took on head-on was Tim Ryan, who was one of the weakest people on the stage.
Now I had no idea that a guy named Tim Ryan was running for president. I'm gonna have to say, and there were a couple guys there. There was the Washington governor,
Jay Inslee, yes,
and there was the guy sitting next to him who looked like he had no upper lip.
I'm trying to think which one that was. Oh, that was Delaney,
John
Boulder, Delaney.
John Mulaney. I love him. Very great comedian. I've seen all of his Netflix specials. yeah, there were several people where, and I'd like to think that I stay up to date on current events. Obviously, you do a far better job than I do, but I was just shocked to see when they were making the announcements. It was just, candidate after candidate. I sat there and said, don't know who that person is. Never heard. Okay, I heard of him. All right. Hey, Bill de Blasio. You can't even run New York City. How are you going to run a country?
I will say this, though. Bill de Blasio surprised and impressed me with his performance last night. And he took a lot of heat.
I think he was prepared. He was prepared.
Okay. Yes.
He was very well prepared. And I think he, when given the floor, took full advantage of the airtime that he was given.
And even when he didn't have the floor, he was definitely one of the more aggressive individuals to try and get the attention on him. And I think
right.
Some people kind of bashed him today as being rude. I think any New Yorker is like, well, that's just how we act. But in a setup like that where you're trying to fight for time with 10 other people, I think he played a perfect strategy. Again, I don't think it's really going to amount to anything, but kind of that second tier of performances last night. I had him, I had Klobuchar, and I had Inslee. Because I think Governor Inslee has some great platform. He definitely has the best climate change platform out of any of the candidates out there. Again, I just don't think he is someone that will connect with voters.
No, not at all. I also liked when Klobuchar shut him down when he started patting himself on the back, saying that he was the only one who had actually moved women's rights forward because of some bill that he passed during his time as governor. And Klobuchar said, I think that some of the women on this panel would take issue with that, because we've been fighting for women's rights for a very long time. I thought that was a very good line.
O'Rourke, I think, didn't hurt, didn't help. And then the bottom was Ryan, Gabbard, and Delaney. If they continue their presidential campaigns past this week, it'd be surprising to me.
Well, what I don't understand at this point is who is funding those campaigns.
I mean,
like, I get O'Rourke. O'Rourke had a popular base at one point, but a guy like Delaney, there's no broad-based knowledge of who he is. He's had not a particularly successful political career, to be considered for president. I mean, obviously, he's done far better than I have in terms of politics. So I won't hold that against him. But just like there's some wealthy backer who's paying for this campaign,
or he could be financing his own campaign at this point. I mean, what a lot of these candidates do is they loan money to their campaigns with the hopes that they'll be able to pay themselves back by collecting donations.
Which is odd, because Trump did the complete opposite, which was he had his campaign loan him money.
Well, that's because he knows the art of the deal.
It's a fabulous deal, wonderful deal. It's a great deal.
So we have got night 2 going on tonight. By the time you listen to this, I'm sure it'll be all a buzz.
We're going to have some of the big boys tonight. We got Biden,
Bernie.
You've got Bernie Sanders going tonight.
Buttigieg.
Yeah, I don't know about him.
I like him. We'll see.
I like Fabergé.
It'll be interesting to see how he does. Again, you'll already know. We'll have known how he's done, but I think good things are coming from him.
But this is his opportunity to take himself from second tier and go up to first tier.
No question. This is what's going to separate the wheat from the chaff, if you will.
Interesting. Very interesting. Also, I do want to say on record that I am depressed about the slide by the Democratic candidates to go as far left as possible. It was like watching them play a game of what is it, jump frog?
Leapfrog?
Or frog jump or leapfrog. They were all playing a game of leapfrog to see who could be the more progressive candidate. And the problem is that by doing that, they are alienating the middle and pushing the middle right into voting Republican. And that's exactly That's what happened in 2016.
It'll be interesting to see tonight, especially because obviously, Joe Biden is really trying to anchor himself in the middle, whereas Bernie's going to try and push things as far left as possible. So I think it's going to be a very interesting mix tonight on stage. We'll see how it plays out.
There we go. What else do we
got? Brian, one of your favorite things. I know you've been throwing questions at me. It's time for me to throw a few questions at you for lightning round. Are you ready, my friend?
Yes.
Let's see.
Bring it on.
Let me see if I can toss you a softball here first for lightning round. So, Brian, Amazon Prime Days are July 15th and 16th. What deal are you looking to score?
I'm looking to score some smart plugs.
Smart plugs, wise choice.
I'm going to go for smart plugs, and I may be open-minded to the idea of a new television. Okay. I've had this TV. I've got a 36-inch, I think it might be.
49 at the minimum is the way to go.
See, this is the thing, and this is where I think I'm different than other consumers, which is that as long as something is still working, I will continue to use it.
Well, that is admirable.
When it breaks, I usually go to top of the line. And I don't mean like the 4K and whatnot, but I will go full size to TV. It's just that I will watch that TV until it breaks, and then I will buy a new one. I'm not the kind of consumer where I go out and I buy the new thing just because there's a newer thing out. Like, I'm still working on an iPhone 7.
So you and I are very different in that way. I have an addiction to new technology.
Clearly, you schooled me on
smart plugs and everything else.
I think I could get hooked on that Kickstarter.
Don't
thing.
go. It's a rabbit hole if you go on there.
I'm still shocked that you spent $400 on a coffee maker that you may or may not.
I'm never getting that damn thing. I try not to think about it.
I would be literally writing death threats.
That's why I'm thinking maybe it's best you don't go on Kickstarter.
I would be cutting out letters out of a magazine to just tape together of just death threats.
Let's get back to lightning round.
I'm looking.
Eric Trump is claiming that he was spit on at a Chicago restaurant. Should we care? And if so, why?
No, we should not care. His food has been spit in more times than
at the very
else.
least. He should hope that it's just spit that he's eating.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul tweeted the same picture of a pair of sepia-toned donkeys with the word soon. People believe this means that a Breaking Bad movie is coming next year. Good idea or bad idea?
I'm going to have to say that it is going to be a bad idea. There's no way that they're going to be able to recreate that magic. Let it go.
All right. Can you think of a worse defense when someone accuses you of rape than, quote, she isn't my type?
Ooh. Yeah, you're talking about Donald Trump.
Possibly. Allegedly.
The man has a history of attacking women's looks. Whenever he talks about somebody, she's either gorgeous or and especially if she's a Democrat or somebody that's not a fan of him, he attacks her physically. Not a great personality trait.
No, not at all. All right, Brian, were you following the situation with Wayfair this past week?
I was not until I saw a tweet from the Ron and Brian podcast official Twitter account, which opened my eyes to what was going on in Boston and made me proud to be an American.
So Wayfair, for those of you who may not know, they sell a lot of crap, home goods, stuff like that. Is it crap? Wayfair. I mean, I don't know. It's probably good stuff. It's probably a mix. It's like a home goods online. Okay. And so apparently they sold furniture to one of these detention centers in Texas that are housing these migrant children that are separated from their families. It's like a $200,000 order. And their employees were very upset with this, staged a walkout the other day because they feel there should be a code of ethics that their company contributes to. Who do you feel is in the right, Wayfair or their employees?
I think they're both in the right. I think Wayfair as a company has a right to sue to sell its products to whomever it wants to. I believe the employees are right in the sense that they have a right to protest the company they're working for. They have a right to go look for a new job and to take their talents elsewhere. I think a company does not exist if it were not for the collective efforts and skills of its employees. If its employees do not agree with the corporate actions of Wayfair, Wayfair doesn't exist anymore, or the Wayfair that we know it. And I think that, and it's one of the things that I love about a capitalist society, because we as consumers can make the educated decision of not purchasing Wayfair products out of protest to the fact that they are profiting off of the crisis at the U.S.-Mexican border. I know I'm not going to buy anything from Wayfair, not because of how they handle the situation, because you just said that they sold crap. And I can't. I don't buy crap.
No one buys crap. Not
so
on
I
this,
think
not on this
it's a beautiful thing when people let their voices be heard. I think it's we had a Democratic primary election here in New York City this past Tuesday, and I believe that somewhere around 10% of the people voted.
That was one thing I noticed. I believe it was Tiffany Caban for DA in Queens was obviously the one race that got national attention because she was backed by AOC. She's part of the progressive. Melissa Katz was more supported by the status quo, and like the total amount of votes was around like 85, 90,000.
It's shameful.
And Queens has more. There are more people living in Queens than I think they said like 11 states in the country.
That's right. That's my people. My people you're talking about right now. So I think that it's...
And you get less than 100,000 people coming out to vote.
And you get more people retweeting somebody saying that they are upset about Wayfair's actions. So I think we live in a democracy. We live in a capitalist society. And I think that the strongest thing that you have as an American is your right to vote. And that includes where you work and how you spend your money. And I think that if we use that power collectively, we could enact change very easily.
All right. Let's keep on rolling with the lightning round. Brian, Andrew Dice Clay and Roseanne announced this week that they're going out together on a comedy tour entitled Mr. and Mrs. America. If they come to New York City, are you going?
No.
No.
I saw Dice Clay 2 years ago, and I think I chuckled a couple times. I did not find that his stuff had was funny. I seen him in Vegas about maybe 10 years ago. Laughed my ass off, for the full hour that he did. Maybe I was just not in the mood that day or whatnot. But I can't imagine that Roseanne's going to be funny. I mean, she has skewed so far to the right that I cannot imagine her telling jokes anything other than political. And
I saw Andrew Dice Clay on Valentine's Day in 1993.
Where?
Albany, New York.
Oh, nice. How was it?
Yeah. I mean, it was when he was at his peak. I mean, he was, and it was me and a bunch of my guy friends, and obviously all of our girlfriends were like, "We can't believe you're fucking going to see Andrew Dice Clay on Valentine's Day," and we were like, "Hey, bitch, we're gonna go see Andrew Dice Clay." Hopefully, I've matured in the 25 plus years since then, but he was killing back then. But yeah, I don't know if I would go see him now.
Yeah, I saw him in Brooklyn a couple of years ago, and I thought it was like a hometown show. I thought it was. And I just felt that it felt tired, for lack of a better phrase.
All right. Let's see. More lightning round. Costco is now selling 2-pound cheese flights for $19.99. Are we in the end times?
No, I don't think so. I think that we are approaching a crisis level of consumerism. I think we are. We have promoted ourselves as to a position where we are obsessed with aesthetics rather than content.
Okay. Just a couple more here for the lightning round. The Office is leaving Netflix in 2021 as NBC Universal plans to start its own streaming service. Disney has pulled content from Netflix as it prepares to launch Disney Plus later this year. Can Netflix maintain its current subscriber base and survive long term?
Yes. I think that Netflix, if you've seen what they're doing, their business model now is original content. They're not licensing new stuff anymore. All the TV shows that they're adding that we are binging, these are all made for Netflix TV shows. I think they're going to do fine without The Office.
All right. And our final question here tonight on the lightning round. Does any of this really matter, Brian? We've got voter suppression being unchecked in states like Georgia, Texas, Florida. The Supreme Court decided to take a pass on handling the gerrymandering that's going on.
Question.
Is anything going to get better?
Absolutely. Everything is cyclicals.
Okay.
I just made up a word, and I haven't even had anything to drink. No, everything is cyclical. We go through good times, we go through bad times. We go through times where we're working towards a common good, and then we go through a period of time where we're being stretched apart. We are currently in seemingly a crazy time, but I do not believe that it is that we are sliding into the abyss. I think we're just going through a time where we are all looking out for ourselves and not as part of the greater good.
All right, let's hope you're
so
right.
I do have a question for you. No, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Gerrymandering.
All right, this is your lightning round
No.
to me. Sorry. I just like that sound effect.
The gerrymandering, I read it described in the New York Times, and maybe you're not you don't have that much exposed, but they said that the whole idea of the gerrymandering is to ensure that political parties are in power forever. And that I didn't understand.
Yeah, gerrymandering is changing the shape of districts.
Correct.
To ensure that certain political parties maintain control of elected positions.
Because we're talking House legislatures.
Pretty much. I mean, from a state standpoint, yes, it's more House and Senate on a state level for the most part.
Because I think I think the states do have a right to determine the geographical shapes of the districts within themselves. But I also believe that it's a game. There's a game being played right now that the Republicans are killing right now. They are mastering this game. And the Democrats are taking this approach of whining that it's not fair, and they're getting killed on it. And I think that if the Republicans want to go the gerrymandering route, I think it is incumbent on Democratic voters to move into Republican territories. No. It's exactly in line with what I said earlier, which is use your dollar to represent your views.
But not everybody has that ability to just pick up and move. There is an expense involved in moving, and you have. Pennsylvania is the perfect example of gerrymandering, where if you look at the midterm elections in 2018, depending on the area that you look at in the state of Pennsylvania, Democrats captured anywhere from 45 to 54% of the vote and lost seats in the state Congress.
That's because they're not playing the game. Is that, if as Democrats, instead of investing in expensive campaigns, buy real estate as a party and say that if you promise to vote Democratic, you can live on this land.
But should there have to be a game is the question. Should the understanding that the state should be able to control it to an extent, but when the states are screwing with the districts to the point that they're giving themselves an unfair advantage, whoever is in control. And listen, there are areas that the Democrats are doing this as well. So it's just as bad on the left as it is the right. But why can't it be a case of where it's being done, where it's equitable, and people are being represented by people that live in there?
We've never, as humans, experienced equality. We've always sat there and struggled to defend our own little anthill and push other ants away. That's why.
All right. Well, that was it
Thank you,
for
Ron.
for Lightning Round for this week. Hopefully you all had some fun there. Let's see if we have anything else. Real quick, we were going to talk about how horrible Alabama continues to be. These are the stories that we pulled for Alabama in just the past week. Obviously, one of the bigger stories, like an unwanted pedophile at the mall. Roy Moore is back. He has decided that he is going to run for Senate again in Alabama. Hopefully the people of Alabama will be as smart as they were last time and keep him from taking that seat. Also, Alabama passed a new law that allows a church based in Alabama, which is known to be racist and homophobic, to form its own police force.
Oh.
Which I'm sure that won't end poorly. We saw that in the Big Country documentary with the Bhagwan Shri
Rajneesh. Oh, that
when
was
they formed
great.
their own police force. There is a car dealership in Alabama that for July 4th is offering you a free used shotgun, a Bible, and an American flag if you buy a car. Yeehaw. But I think the worst, and this came out just the other day, there is a woman who has been in Alabama. She has been indicted for manslaughter because she miscarried her baby after being shot.
I saw that. I saw that today. And what was your take on that?
So it's in my mind it's completely insane.
But did you read the specifics of the story?
I did.
She was the aggressor.
So,
the other person walked away multiple times, and she kept pushing.
But the other thing is that, all right, so this is Marsha Jones. She was 5 months pregnant in December 2018. During a fight, Ebony Jemison shot her in the stomach, and her baby ended up dying. They were not able to get an indictment against Jemison. So because they weren't able to get an indictment against the shooter for manslaughter, that's when they decide to go up against the mother.
Yes.
And I guess I have an issue with this because it sets a very dangerous precedent. Should she have walked away? Certainly. But should you not also have a level of expectation that if you're going to have a confrontation with another individual, that individual does not have the right to shoot you?
Well, I think, did they make the argument that it was self-defense?
I don't know if they did or not.
'Cause I can
the articles I read really didn't say too much.
I can understand self-defense. If this person felt like, yes, if you're living in a state where the gun laws say you can shoot somebody in self-defense, then yeah, I think that woman should walk. I do believe, and I believe that someone should not use the fact that they're pregnant as just an expectation of I can do whatever I want.
But I also think
what I want.
you shouldn't be
Shoot.
You shouldn't feel that you're just going to get shot.
You shouldn't be shooting.
You shouldn't shoot people. I mean, let's just draw a line in the sand and say, hey, you know what, people? Let's not shoot people. Let's not shoot each other, especially if they're pregnant.
That works. That works for me.
All right, and then lastly, we just want to wrap up and say goodbye to some of the people that we lost this week. Author Judith Krantz wrote a lot of books that I did not read. A lot of romance novels. Scruples, was that one of them? I think so.
I remember when I was 12, I borrowed one of my sister's books, and it was a Judith Krantz novel. And that was the summer that I became a man.
All right. Passed away at 91, I believe. So we will miss Judith. Not as much as you will miss Judith.
Oh, no,
apparently.
I still have the book.
Oh, nice. Are the pages stuck together?
It's just one big entity, just glued shut.
Let's see here. For those of us that were young enough to remember the TV show Alf, the dad from Alf, Max Wright, passed away. He was, hold on, I got that here somewhere. This stupid computer. He was 75 years old. He had battled cancer since 1995. So definitely a fighter. Had some issues in the 90s after Alf went off the air when it came out that he had apparently been involved in some gay porn in the 70s. Had a little crack smoking issue. So kind of found it hard to find work after that.
It really did affect his career after. Even I will admit that, suddenly I did not see him as the lovable America's dad.
Yeah, you don't come back
No,
from that.
you definitely don't.
One thing, I was thinking about this earlier because, we've obviously had this epidemic of reality television for, what would we say, the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years at this point?
Yes, but don't you also feel that it's starting to die down?
Well, it may be starting to die down, but my point more being was, like, everyone's been saying, oh, there's nothing original. Everybody just wants reality TV. When we look back to the 80s to shows like Alf,
Family Ties,
Small Wonder, Family Ties, we had some dumb fucking TV shows we
terrible.
watched as kids.
Well, not only that we
So-
were watching terrible shows as kids, but our parents were watching terrible shows as adults. Knots Landing was Dallas. Like those were.
Don't mess with Knots Landing. That was my jam back in the 90s.
What was the one? Dynasty. Like they
Dynasty was trash.
They were all trash.
Point being
Magnum
is,
PI was garbage.
reality TV is nowhere near as bad as some of the TV shows we had to sit through back in the
I think
day.
it's just as bad, just a little bit different.
Yeah,
I think, in all honesty, reality shows is just a way to eliminate the writers.
I mean, that is what a lot of people alleged was, it's a lot cheaper to do a reality show because you're not really paying the people participating more in the scale, and you're not paying writers, and definitely a lot less cost involved. And then we're also saying goodbye this week to Beth Chapman, wife of bounty hunter Dog, Dwayne Dog Chapman. She passed away at the age of 51 after a battle with cancer as well. So cancer sucks. No two ways around it. She had been in remission in 2017. It came back, and she was unable to defeat it a second time.
There's no joke there. Like there's no
joke.
Cancer sucks.
Interesting little bit of information about Beth Chapman. She was the youngest woman to ever receive a bail license in the state of Colorado, a record that was later broken by her daughter, Lissa.
I did not know that.
A little bit of information.
Does her daughter also have the ability to float in water?
That I do not know. So we do send sympathies out to Dog and the rest of the Chapman family. And I think that's about all we had on tap this week. We covered quite a lot.
I think we spent a lot of time on the Democratic debate. And yet I feel like we all learned a little bit about ourselves. You loved it.
Hopefully everybody out there loved it. Oh, and I did forget one last question for lightning round. Oh, I don't have I turned off that sound effect. Where are you going to be on Saturday, July 20th, Brian?
I'm going to be in the in the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, PA. And what am I going to be doing, Ron?
You're going to be at the Podcast Festival seeing a live taping of the Ron and Brian podcast at 12:30 at Tattooed Mom, 5th and South Street.
And also, if you're going to be in the Philadelphia area on Saturday, July 20th, come on down. Tattooed Mom. Ron, what's the address?
5th and South Street. I think it's 531 South, but 5th and South. You won't miss it.
Come on down. Live Ron and Brian podcast. We will have merch for sale. We've got T-shirts. We have magnets. We've got bumper stickers. We've got retro. We have retro train cars. Lionel train
That's
cars
neat.
that we have. We've got special edition, limited edition Adidas.
Very limited.
Which has our faces on it. Bring plenty of cash. We don't take credit cards because Uncle Sam doesn't know this needs to be happening.
That's right. Bring cash with you. And as always, hit up Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Go to ronandbrianpodcast.com. Not only can you listen to the podcast there, but hit our Contact Us page. Send us your address. We'll send you out some stickers. We've had a few people reach out so far. We appreciate that. Let's get a few more people out there. And as always, subscribe, rate, review, and share.
And love each other.
Anything else?
Love each other.
What's that?
Love
yeah.
each other.
I was thinking this earlier, not to extend the podcast, but I do a lot of the work on our Twitter page.
You're killing it.
It's becoming more and more disheartening for me to go on the Twitter page and see the hatred being spewed by everyone to everyone.
I can't deal with it. I genuinely.
We need to find a path to healing for everybody in this country. I was almost at the point earlier today that I'm like, I'm just going to walk away from social media.
I wouldn't, you know what? I like the idea of using it to promote our brand, but I checked out of Twitter a while ago. I don't have the stomach to deal with it because it literally is two sides of a gymnasium trying to scream louder at the other half. Nobody's listening. People are just thinking, if I scream louder, then I'll make my point better. Very disheartening.
Right. Well, love each other. Find someone else to love out there. Be nice to one another. Try and be better than you were the day before. And we'll try and be better next week. It's what we try and do in each and every week. I mean, this episode's gold. We try and make it platinum next week. All right. Anything else you got this week, my friend?
Love you.
Love you too, sir. All right, let's roll on out of here. And we'll catch you on the flip.